Yeah, if I could get a rag or something for this,
Sure.
that's good enough. Okay, so yeah, basically, what
Yeah.
this is about is we have a short 5-10 minute interview, and ask you about a belief that you hold, and kind of explore that belief. And it's ideal if it's like a belief that you make decisions regularly, or that influence your decisions, because those are just more fun.
Yeah.
So it could be anything.
Um, I just get started then?
Yeah, just
Um,
any belief.
Very cool. Well, I noticed
Thanks.
on the sign that it says what is true. And I'm taking a philosophy class on pragmatism, and there's a pragmatic named William James who subscribes to the idea that every truth is variable and that every truth is true. So that while someone in my life could hold a truth that I blatantly disagree with on some like moral value, that doesn't make their truth any less true, and that facts can always be disagreed upon, but some truths are more valuable than others.
Interesting.
And those truths are more valuable based on the way that they affect your goals. So I'll find some truths very valuable because they serve a benefit to the people in my life that are really close to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And I use this for a lot of decision making. As I notice, I think a lot of people do unconsciously. Like, for example, I've had some disagreements with my friends on the concept of whether if I had $1 million, how much of that would I donate and how much of it would I hand to my family? Or let's say 1 billion if we really want to go extreme. If I had $1 billion right now, I think I would give quite a bit more to my family than I think some people would, because I know that money can be trusted in the hands of my family and I want them to have financial freedom for the rest of their lives. And I had some friends who were like, no, all of that needs to go to some very strong philanthropic cause.
Okay.
But I think that's because my truth is bringing value to my family and my friends first and foremost, and their truth is the general human public.
Interesting. And you said you learned about this recently or a while back ago?
In one of my classes, it's called Process Philosophy and Pragmatism,
Okay.
and William James was a very famous like social philosopher in psychoanalysis.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, one thing I noticed is you're saying that like, your friend's truth was to donate a lot to, like, a charity, but your truth was, like, improving the value of your family's lives.
Yeah.
Um, hmm.
What about you? What would you do if you had $1 billion?
I don't know. There's a lot of options.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So this is kind of what I was thinking, because to me it sounds like when you say true, you mean like what you think is good,
Yeah.
right? Would you say that, like, for instance, in this box there's a certain number of Tic Tacs, right?
Yeah.
And I'd say like maybe there's 8 or 11, and you'd say maybe there's 12 or something, right?
Yeah.
But would you agree that like there's a correct answer to that question?
There is a ground truth with a capital T, but if for the sake of argument, there were actually 12 in there, 12 like to the count, and you went, no, there's 9,
Okay.
you would still have a truth. And your truth would be maybe because you have this goal to spread disinformation, or because you earnestly believe that there are 9 and somewhere along your life you messed up in the counting process. But for that reason, I would acknowledge your truth as being yours, and I don't think that I would judge you against it. I would just like to explore it more.
Right.
And I think it's really helped me be open-minded.
Gotcha.
Because, I mean, some people really just have, like, blatantly wrong opinions.
Uh-huh.
But I don't think it's their fault. I think most people usually mean well.
Okay. So, in a way, a person's truth is kind of like their opinion?
Yeah, pretty similar.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What would be the difference between, like, just an opinion and then somebody's truth? Like, the number in a Tic Tac box or donating to charity or family?
I think there's like capital T ground truth, which is like something factual that's really hard to disagree with based on the laws of science and whatnot.
Right, okay.
But I think that some people have truths that we see too much as opinions.
Okay.
Like moral quandaries, for example. Like that person truly believes that is the right thing, and in that case to them it is true. It is correct, and it's 100% what they believe is the right thing to do. Now, obviously, there's a lot of self-sabotage and like people doing the wrong thing sometimes, but even then, like when you do the wrong thing, your conscience is still telling you that there is a truth to follow.
Gotcha. So, would there what would you say your confidence in that belief is?
I would
Like,
say pretty maxed out. I know it's kind of an interesting idea,
uh,
but my professor is also very compelling, so it makes it
Right.
easy to just be like, "Oh, you're so right. Like, you know what you're talking about." Um, I think it's just because it keeps me really open-minded and practical. I think I can see people emotionally and be empathetic because I recognize that, they probably have a reason for saying what they're saying or doing what they're doing.
mhm.
But at the same time, I can be like, am I correct? Like, I have a truth, but is it the ground truth?
Mhm.
Is it what's right? If someone's disagreeing with me, they must have reason to do so, unless they're just messing around.
Right. Hmm. So if somebody were to say, I'm. Oh, I also have a question about. You say capital T truth. Is that
Yeah.
also like you also use that in conversations? I feel like it can be a little bit confusing, maybe.
It is a
Like
little
how
confusing.
how do you discern the two when you're talking to people?
Using the words capital T
Oh,
or
okay.
like ground truth. I don't know. That's just how we reviewed it in the course I was taking.
Gotcha.
And after talking with some friends about it. But then again, like I'm not really that read up on it. It's just one idea that I find really interesting.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And you said you're like maxed out. So on a scale of 0 to 100, in believing that this this philosophy is true,
Yeah.
you're at 100%.
I think it's a really useful way to go about life.
Useful.
Yeah. I don't know if it's the cool thing about pragmatism is I honestly think it's a viable alternative to stoicism, which has been really relevant in modern male communities and social media.
Uh-huh.
And that's because I think instead of being based in virtue, it's based in like consequentialism. So we could, instead of being like murder is wrong, it's like murder to save 7 billion people could be okay depending on the consequences and the value of that action.
Right.
Whereas stoicism would be like that's wrong entirely. So I think honestly we should be more pragmatic in general. Things are things are valuable if they have use, if they do some good in your eyes. And I think that's just the way I've started to live.
Gotcha. What do you think would have to change in order for you to stop believing in that, or reduce your confidence from 100% to like 99 or 95?
I think it's kind of an optimistic outlook. So if some people were to, like a huge contingent of people were, instead of being brainwashed, were genuinely evil, like they understood the benefits of being nice to people and then decided that they felt like the truth was to do harm,
Okay.
and not because it served some greater purpose or did some good. They just straight up malice. I think I would have a hard time coming to terms with it.
Hmm. Can you explain that a little bit more? How does that conflict with like your take on?
I think that people are usually serving their moral compass or their conscience when they're finding this truth,
Uh-huh.
but it makes it hard to justify people who lack conscience. I guess that is just like dealing with like the therapeutic aspects of psychopathy or something, but I don't
Yeah.
really know how to handle that.
Hmm.
For the general public though, I feel like it's pretty useful.
Right. So but it can not be useful, right? Like for some people, maybe that's not.
Probably. I think maybe if you lack conscience entirely or you don't see, like you don't find any purpose in anything ever, there's nothing you really value, I guess it could be difficult to be pragmatic because you don't know what's right or wrong based on your own decision making. Not to say that anything is right or wrong in pragmatism, it's kind of just like you do the thing because it's valuable. And what makes it valuable is somewhat up to you, somewhat up to the utilitarian purpose.
Gotcha. And
Like, what do you find valuable, for example? Let's say you had $1 billion, priority list. What's number one?
well, it's interesting because there's knowing what you think is valuable and then knowing how to achieve that, right?
Yeah.
So like say, well, I think it's important to, stop world hunger or something, or to improve well-being overall.
Yeah.
Knowing how to do that is the barrier, right, if I had $1 billion, like I'm sure I could do it to some degree, but I don't know how well I could achieve that goal. Did you have any questions or comments?
Pragmatism?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like usefulness?
Yeah. It's a like general philosophy of life on the value of things being based on whether they're useful or not. Like
Could
whether they
something be useful and false?
Yeah, I think a lot of things are. Like, this is a very personal take, but I think religion is generally false, but for a lot of people it has like a spiritual element to it. It relieves a lot of anxiety, it causes a lot of faith. I think religion's overall useful, but like ground truth, I think it's false.
How do you tell when to go with pragmatic theory versus correspondence theory?
Correspondence theory?
Yeah, because I think so. It doesn't sound like you're using pragmatism to decide if something's true or not, right?
No, I generally accept things as true for like a reason. The same way we use the TikTok example. Like if you tell me something that I really blatantly disagree with, I believe optimistically that you have a reason for telling me that. It helps me stay like very open-minded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Investigating why somebody would come to that
Yeah.
conclusion.
Like a lot of people are like deeply like racist or homophobic, and they usually have a reason in their upbringing. Maybe they were brainwashed. They like believe in some other people as being the boogeyman, but I don't think they mean actual harm to other human beings as much as they are just out of fear protecting themselves. Yeah.
So what's the actual claim
Um,
that we're investigating? What you asked about the confidence scale?
yeah, the belief that somebody's truth can be different than somebody else's truth.
Okay. So what's your definition of truth?
It is something someone believes earnestly, maybe.
Could someone believe something earnestly and it not be true?
Yeah, like religion, for example.
Yeah.
Like true, with the capital T, I don't think religion is true, like ground truth. But if they believe it's true, then that's their truth, I suppose.
Someone's truth could be false.
You did that last
False
time.
in my eyes, true in
Inaccurate.
theirs.
Inaccurate.
Oh, inaccurate. Like, there are, let's say there's 12 TikToks in there and you tell me there's 9.
Uh-huh.
I would say that's like ground truth, false.
Okay.
But it's your truth. Like, maybe you never learned to count, you know? Like, if you believe there's 9 and you have full conviction that there's 9 and you're not just like fucking with me,
Right. So my truth could be false.
yeah, I guess.
So why use the word truth?
I think opinion takes away from it. And I don't know, that's just the terminology we picked up in the course, to tell you the truth.
Cool. Okay. Well, what would cause your confidence to lower?
In this belief? I don't know. It's a hard one because I feel like it's pretty unanimously acceptable. It feels applicable to everything. I don't see a way that I could disagree with it, which is kind of why I adopted the belief in the first place.
Is there a less confusing way to put it, maybe?
Probably. It's accepting that most people have a practical reason for doing something, and when it comes down to it, when we can find out whose truth is better, whose opinion is more valuable, it's what serves our mutual purposes better. So
That's
let's
the
say
pragmatic.
that's the pragmatic part.
Pragmatism part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we both want to approach an issue like world hunger, and you have a fanciful idealistic idea and I have a rational one, whatever is going to make the most difference that we can compromise on is probably the most effective.
I had a question.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
go
okay.
please.
So you asked me if I had $1 billion, what would I do with it?
Yeah.
And would you just give it to your family, or was there other things that you'd want to do with it?
I think it would have to be a healthy balance. Don't have full faith in my family to give them $1 billion. Obviously, that's a ridiculous amount of money. I think enough to make sure that my parents retire safely, that my future education and my sister's education are paid for, and a piece of property because fuck it, I have $1 billion.
Right.
And then after that, I think the rest I would find some humanitarian efforts to do something about.
Gotcha. So so you'd say that a big part of your truth is that, you know, humanitarian aid. Kind of elaborate on what that important part is to you. What you think is what your truth there, like decreasing suffering, or
Oh, interesting.
like what does that look
So-
like for you with your other part of your $1 billion?
This is actually cool. I'm part of an organization called Effective Altruism.
Okay.
And they do a lot of work in quantifying, in quality-adjusted life years, the difference that some philanthropy will make.
Yeah.
So they do a really good job of being like, if we donate $100 to the Trevor Project or $100 to rainforests in Africa, what's going to make the most difference? Or rainforests in, South America, what's going to make the most difference in people's lives overall over time? And so they've gotten really good at this guesstimation idea. And usually rainforests in South America are the way to go to reduce carbon levels the most, more than anything else you can really do. By the amount of money that you donate. So I'd probably look for a way to quantify it. I'm also a computer science guy, so
Gotcha.
it makes it easy
So
to calculate the
yeah,
numbers.
I've heard of that before. And I think it's really interesting. There's like a point in time where it was like buying mosquito nets was also like the biggest bang for your buck that
Oh,
way.
yeah.
I don't know if that doesn't sound like it's current anymore, but I'm wondering if somebody cannot be pragmatic and not use this definition of truth, but also achieve what you're saying is important, like effective altruism, increasing well-being overall.
Yeah.
Is it possible to do that without using pragmatism and this definition of truth and definition of capital T ground truth?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. I think pragmatism is just an approach to help explain decision making in some ways, or like see what the most valuable things are at different points in time.
Okay.
I think that you could be a staunch pragmatist and be completely evil, in my eyes at least, because you think what you're doing is right and you are finding usefulness in it. As long as you're working towards making sure your decisions are most useful to you, then I think you're doing it pretty well.
Right.
Yeah.
So if we were living in a world where, for some reason, there's a whole bunch of evil pragmatists, right,
Yeah.
that don't want to.
Well, it'd be scary. They'd be effective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How would you go about trying to convince them that they're wrong?
Oh, interesting. I don't know. I think pragmatism is one of those things that's really hard to argue against. Maybe because like they think what they're doing is right. If I have no way of changing their mind on the belief, I don't know how to pull them away from pragmatism, which is just a good way of making sure your beliefs happen. Yeah.
Pragmatism is harmful.
Possibly. I think it's like an avenue to get your shit done. or like to have conversations with people, to make things work.
Not necessarily a reliable path to get to accuracy.
No, I don't think it's good or evil. I think it's a way of finding out what truths are most valuable to you and to the people around you. If I was in an organization and we all had a shared goal, then whatever truths we propose as being like ideas, we could find out what's the most practical way to go about it.
Oh man, I have more questions, but I
Yeah.
I gotta go pretty soon.
Oh, no worries.
Maybe in that class, did you hear about other philosophies kind of like that might not agree with that idea of pragmatism and truth?
Yeah, there's a lot actually.
Okay, so maybe that could be, if you want to keep talking, that could be something to explore, like maybe why one would believe in a non-pragmatic philosophy
Yeah.
over the other. But I gotta go.
All right,
Yeah.
no worries.
So, but
You don't want to be
thanks,
late for work.
Varun, right?
I have to go as well. Yes.
Okay.
Thank
Can
you.
spell your name?
Varun.
That was a unique conversation. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
V-A-R-U-N?
Varun.
R-U-N. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. That was great.
Thanks, David.
Thanks so much for participating.
Remind me of your name. I'm sorry.
Justin,
Thank you, Justin.
Yes.
have a
Yeah.
good day.
Yeah, you as well.
If you scan the QR code, that'll take you to the YouTube channel where these go on.
Sweet. I definitely will.
Cool. Take
I'll
care.
catch up with you later, okay?
Yeah, I'll be in touch. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Yeah, you as well.
Hello.
Well, no, it's like it was pretty like consistent for a time.